comment. Limited 3 minutes per speaker for a total of 30 minutes. And I'm going to just to read the public comment message to the people that wish to address the board. Public comment. The Board of Education welcomes members of the public to address them at school board meetings. However, school personnel should be given the opportunity to hear concerns and work to resolve them at the appropriate level first, as questions or concerns are handled best when addressed as close to their origin as possible. To preserve decorum and conduct school business in a professional manner, the board requests that all persons attending the meeting maintain order and follow the rules. Anyone wishing to address the Board of Education at a regularly scheduled business meeting will have 2 opportunities to do so. The board will use this time to listen. Speakers will have 3 minutes to address the board. By law, the board is not permitted to address personnel or individual student matters in open session. When acknowledged, speakers will be asked to state their name, relationship to the district, as an example, a parent, teacher, resident, student, and your topic. If your comments require follow-up, we will ask that you contact the board clerk after the meeting, and that's Sonia Brown. Her phone number is 762-8100 and extension 319, or her email address is browns@binghamtonschools.org. We thank you in advance for your cooperation. How to comment using Zoom, you click on raise your hand button. The chair will acknowledge when it is your turn. You will be asked to unmute your mic and allowed to speak. After the allotted time, your mic will be muted. How to comment and call in is to press 9, raise your hand, and we'll proceed on that grounds. I'm going to ask to help me here if our board clerk, Sonia, can you identify anybody that's
Yes.
has the raised hand and
Yes. First on the list is Tina Chronopoulos, who has her hand raised.
Hold on 1 second because I want to set a clock. Okay, thank you very much. You can open her mic.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, good evening, Tina.
Hi, thanks. I'm starting a timer too, so I guess I'll do that. My name is Tina Chronopoulos. You know me. I have talked to you all before. It's important for those of you who don't know me that you know that I am a white person and I am from Germany. So there's a lot to unpack there. So those of you who know me know that I've addressed the board numerous times about racism in the district and about white supremacy, and I am utterly dismayed to see what's going down here. We have a letter from the school district addressed to parents in which the school district issues an apology to the police for having chosen a book that honestly tackles the kinds of issues that we face as a country today. I can't recall, correct me if I'm wrong, the superintendent or the school district ever having issued a letter to parents apologizing for racism to Black kids and their families. Since when do we apologize for something that is happening in this country? Look around you, please. No one chooses to be Black. No one chooses to be Asian. No one chooses to come into the world that they do. People choose to be police officers. People choose to be doctors. People choose to be teachers. These folks need to be held accountable. I'm not sure if you're aware, but if you're a doctor or if you're a nurse, if you're a dentist, you have to take out malpractice insurance in case you do something wrong in your job. It's almost impossible in this country to hold police officers accountable for things that they do on their jobs that they shouldn't be doing, which is regularly killing Black people. They don't do this in Binghamton, but it doesn't mean that police in Binghamton do not engage in racist behaviors. If you've been following the meetings that happened that surround the quote-unquote police reform here in Binghamton, there were many people who phoned in from the community folks of color, white folks who talked about how their kids and their parents and their relatives have been subject to racism at the hands of Binghamton police. And last but not least, we are banning books now. As a German, that makes me feel uncomfortable, right? So maybe we're not banning books, but maybe we are banning books. But why are we suddenly discussing whether or not it's appropriate for us to read this book when there are lots of other books that we could get our panties in a twist about as well? As you can tell, I have not had time to prepare a speech because I have been doing other things too. But I just want to say that I am absolutely dismayed by what's happening here and by the inability of the board and by the inability of our community to recognize that white supremacy is an issue, that this country has an issue with racism, and if we don't talk about it openly, we will never be able to tackle that. My timer stopped just now. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina, for your comments and sharing that with us. I believe one clarification, and I'm not sure it came through or not, is Dr. Thompson had mentioned that this book has not been banned from the library. It wasn't part of the curriculum per se. Dr. Thompson, did you want to add anything on that? Or?
Mr. Whalen, I think we'll wait till all the questions are asked before we engage in the conversation respectfully. But yes, indeed, you're correct. There's not been banning of books. That's not what we're doing. Thank you.
I just want to make sure that if there was a misstatement that it was corrected. That's all. That's
yeah. Thank you. You are correct.
Tanya, could you let me know who the next person is that has their hand raised, please?
Sean Massey.
Welcome, Sean, this evening, and
thank you.
Now your mic is open. You have the opportunity to address the board. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Sean Massey, and I'm the parent of a now 18-year-old young Black man, a MacArthur West Middle School and BHS graduate who is now attending NYU in the city. My son has very fond memories of MacArthur and his teachers there. But he's now living out in a world as a young Black male, listening to the news, watching what's happening on TV, and experiencing the trauma of watching that. And I wish that he'd been able to hear this story when he was a student at MacArthur. I think it would have been extremely important and helpful. A goal of education is to help our kids develop the skills they need to be successful in the world and prepare them to address the challenges they'll face when they go out in the world. It's also about developing critical thinking skills to prepare them to be active participants in the project of democracy. You have to be living under a rock or to have a pathological level of denial to not be aware of the epidemic of the death of people of color at the hands of law enforcement. We are all aware of this crisis. Our kids are aware of this crisis. Now is exactly the time to start an honest conversation about this crisis at all levels in our district. Reading this award-winning book praised by educators, psychologists, and the authors of children's books was exactly the right choice. Posting it online so people knew what MacArthur was doing and also could engage in this conversation was exactly the right choice. The apologies that have been issued in response to protests by the Binghamton police demonstrate the profound disrespect and lack of support, not only for the teachers who understood curriculum around racial justice was sorely lacking in the district, but who did the work to carefully select an age-appropriate, highly rated, and award-winning book to begin to fill that gap. It was also disrespectful of the children that our district serves who need to hear this story and participate in the discussion. And it's exactly the kind of response that will stifle efforts to educate around racial justice in our schools in the future. I would please ask you to do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Next person that has their hand up to speak.
Yeah, this would be Carl Boyer.
Welcome, Carl. Your mic is open. You have to unmute your mic, Carl. Why don't, is there somebody else that has their hand raised? We can come back to Carl.
Yes, Larry Parham.
Welcome, Larry. You can unmute your microphone and you're all set. Good evening.
Is it on mute?
No, you're good. Thank you.
Okay, great. I am here tonight in support of the teachers. Teachers are our nation builders. The strength of every profession in our country grows out of the knowledge and the skills that teachers help instill in our children and those professionals, and that include police officers. I have in the past held the district accountable for the fact that it did not address issues of race in the school. I am absolutely beyond thrilled that our teachers met that challenge and exceeded it. I actually did not expect for them to move this issue forward, not just in high school, but in elementary schools, where we should be having this conversation. This isn't about police officers or about a book. This is our respect for a profession that is geared, that is actually the facilitators of critical thinking in our country. They are the ones that instill in us the questions and the ideas that drive this nation. I support the teachers, I support the principal, and if there's anything that I can do to help promote the efforts, I am more than willing. Thank you, Brian, and the board.
Thank you very much for sharing with us tonight, Larry.
Next.
Sonia, do you have another individual that's ready to?
Yes, Michael Vasquez.
Michael, could you unmute your? Oh,
I did.
welcome, Michael, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, you're very welcome. My name is Michael Vasquez, and I am a homeowner and resident of Binghamton, New York. And I have to say that I was deeply troubled when I saw the video and heard of this book. There's something that's being said here over and over again, and I think it's very important to understand it. We're introducing politics to the very youngest and most vulnerable of our children in our community. I think that's wrong. That's not the place of education. That's not the place of the school system. Now, I want to be very clear. I am not blaming the teachers per se. I am not blaming the school system per se. This is a bigger problem. Perhaps the community hasn't been paying attention enough to allow this to seep in. But unlike many people who will be speaking, and they have very personal, serious reasons why they believe in social justice and then why they believe in equity. But let's understand, that's not what the school is there for. The school is there to teach the children, not about equity, a political ideology, not about social justice, a political ideology. And if you do wish to do that, keep that to the high schools, where we have the young adults about to enter into society and going on to higher learning, who can understand and deal with these complicated issues. Instead, what we should be looking at is teaching the fundamentals of these children so that they understand the words, the meanings, the ideas, and the ability to understand and interpret these ideas so that when they are introduced to these political issues, they are able to address those political issues. School isn't about equity. That's for our politicians. That's for grown adults. You want to talk about social justice, do that. But I can tell you, it is upsetting to me, and it doesn't matter what my race is, but it is upsetting to me when I watch a video, which has since been removed, where a teacher is apologizing for being born in a certain location. What lesson is being transferred? Because she started the conversation before she started reading the book in the video that was removed, saying that she was sorry that she had been born and there weren't a large diversity in her neighborhood. That's a bad message. Having a story that's telling us about the ills of police is a separating and bad issue. That isn't promoting the lesson of, can you spell? Can you read? Do you understand the meanings of the words? Can you do mathematics? Do you have the basic fundamental building blocks to allow you to then understand more complex issues and then to take a position? And more importantly, if you want this book to be read, again, the book is Something Happened, that should be done with parents, not teachers in the school system. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for sharing with us tonight. Sonia, is there another individual out there who's
Emily Paglia.
Emily?
Can you hear us?
Welcome, and the microphone is open. Thank you.
Thank you. Our son Braxton Toth, my name is Tyson Toth, goes to Wilson Elementary. Are we allowed to speak about other topics, or only about this book?
No, you can speak on any item on school district related business.
Okay. I believe that there is some kind of process that the kids may be going back to 4 days a week. I'm not too sure of the specifics of it, but I did speak to someone here this last week. And my concern is the 4 days a week is better than the 2 days a week by far, but the length of school for these kids is, by the time they get to school and actually get into class and start, doing material, and he is in the third grade. So, this is a pretty crucial time for him. And by time the end of the day at 1:30, he's just got done eating. It just doesn't seem like there's much in there for the academic curriculum. I think it's very, very important that we extend these days to get back to normal school days if possible. And that's all we have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us also. And I know that we have there was a reopening presentation also tonight, so hopefully you can listen to that, and if there's any other information that you need, then feel free to contact the district. Okay, Sonia, is there the next person?
Carol Schiffner. Oh, wait a second. Her hand just stopped. Bob Seidel.
Bob's unmuted. Welcome, Bob. You're unmuted and free to address the board. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to thank the board for this opportunity to address you. I've never addressed the school board before, so I'm a newbie. So thank you for that. I'll make this very brief. My wife and I raised our 3 children here in the Binghamton School District. They all went through Franklin, East Junior, and at the East Middle School too, as a matter of fact, as well as the Binghamton High School. We have been here 46 years in Binghamton. We love this area. We love this community. But I gotta say, I was shocked when I saw that video. I think Mr. Vasquez addressed the point very clearly, in my estimation. I really was offended in the section of that book where they read, basically, if it was a white person in the car, the car would not have been pulled over. And that, I can tell you, is not true. I do know that your principal at MacArthur, I didn't know until she said this evening that her husband is in law enforcement. Our son, a graduate from the Binghamton High School, is in law enforcement. I do know you have bad apples no matter where you are. I'm sure you may have a bad teacher or two in your district, just like you have in the profession. But I am just trying to say to you, teaching our children at that age that cops cannot be trusted, which is what I heard, or that they have an agenda. I think that sends the wrong message. I really do. And I know that in the high school that you have Binghamton police officers as SROs. If you have a problem with the police officers, why don't you tell Chief Zakuski that you don't need them at the high school anymore? It seems that we're at an area, and I'm not beating you up, but it seems that we're at a time now in our lives where we can look down on the police officers until we need them. And when we need them, by God, they better be there. That's all I have to say. I do thank you again for allowing me to speak and to address you.
Thank you, Bob, and welcome to your first time speaking to the board and sharing with us. Sonia, is there another person?
Yes. I'm not sure the name. It just says LKAZ.
LKAZ, you're on. We'll unmute you. Could you please identify yourself?
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Laura Kaczynski. My husband is a Binghamton police officer. I have called the superintendent's office as well as MacArthur School with my concern over this book. It's just really disheartening because my husband's been on the job for 18 years. He's one of your SRO officers, and he's also head of security with the athletic director as far as organizing security for your sporting events, school dances, plays, etc. Just as recent as Binghamton felt threatened by a school parent showing up at a football practice, and my husband was there just to make sure that everyone was okay. That being said, when I heard this book and I heard that it was read to school children, and the ages between 4 and 8, I'm deeply disturbed and I'm so saddened. We have 3 children ourselves, and I can tell you now, at 4 years old, they didn't even see color. They would talk about their friends that come home from school, and they would tell us about them and who they were. Skin color was never an issue. I understand that there's stuff going on today in the society, and several things are being reported in the media, but not everything. And a majority of people, if you actually do the research and look up statistics, you will see that there's actually more white people shot and killed by police officers than Black people. We're just only hearing about the Black because it raises uproar. It gets people's attention, it gets them going, it gets protests, it just makes me sad that so much negativity is being brought up on law enforcement, not just with this book, but with everything today. And it's making it so much harder for them to do their job. And I can tell you right now, my husband is one of the good ones, and he does everything he can to bridge the gap. And he's been in schools, and he's been in full uniform, reading books to children and letting them know that they can trust him and he's there for them. And I think that's a very confusing message that you're sending little children, that they can't trust police officers. And I think that you really need to think about that, especially with so many things going on inside the homes and CPS. And if you have a child of color and they're sitting down, they're speaking with a police officer, and they've been read this book, and they've now been told at a very impressionable age, by the way, that they can't trust the police officer, they're not going to talk to them. They're going to be scared. And it's sending a terrible, terrible message. And it just makes me extremely sad. That's all.
Thank you very much and for sharing that with us tonight. Sonia, the next person has their hand up.
Yes, somebody named Bob.
Welcome, Bob. And you're unmuted. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yep, I'm Bob. I'm a Binghamton resident and taxpayer. I just wanted to voice my concern with this book. I totally disagree with it being used in our school district for a lot of the same reasons that the previous caller talked about. Teaching our children at that young age that if a cop dislikes you, basically, he's going to shoot you. That's what the book said. It referenced initially black people, but that certainly applies to any race. And I just think that's wrong. Also, I don't know if the general public's aware that this book in 2020 was the 6th most protested book for being on library shelves. And if somebody had done a little research, that might have been a red flag that maybe this wasn't the right book to put out there. But teaching our kids these kind of things this early in life, it's just, to me, it's wrong. It's just totally wrong. I think the book should be pulled, and there should be some serious consideration in the future given to your book of the month and whatever lessons are being taught in the classrooms. It's a little scary, because if we're using this book to teach our children what's being said in the classroom, that scares me even more. And there obviously appears to be no control over that. I guess that's all. I got a lot more to say, but I guess I'll limit it to that. I thank you for your time, and hopefully we can all do better in the future.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you for sharing that with us tonight. Sonia, next in line is
Yes, Malika Muhammad.
Good evening, Malika. If you can, there you go. Welcome, and the
good evening.
The floor is yours.
Good evening. My name is Malika Muhammad, and I am a mother who lives in Binghamton. I have 5 sons that are African American. And I hear what the callers are saying, but here's a question that I pose to them. Between the ages of 8 and 10, children reach puberty. When do you begin to talk about puberty with your child? When do you begin to talk about the issues that are affecting the children within the society with your child? I'm not saying that I don't agree. People should communicate with their children about what is going on. As a Black American parent with a Muslim name who is Muslim, I get ridiculed. Every time something happens, people look at me. The mayor classified me, because I disagreed with his position in police reform, as a member of a hate group. How insulting. And so we look at these situations, and when are we going to teach our children, not only in school, but at home? Because I have to have a separate conversation with my children, whether it be the males or the females, about how to conduct themselves in a manner so that they will be safe. And as far as I'm concerned, those SROs at the Binghamton High School, they have harassed my children. They've harassed them. So I'm not saying that every cop is bad. My son is in law enforcement. I have people in my family that are in law enforcement. However, there's a lot of bad apples out there. And we have to let these kids know that there are things going on that they need to be aware of. when is it going to get across to us as educators that you don't wait till the bomb drops before you tell somebody that there's something going on? We have to open up and communicate with our kids and let them know that there are issues, because I've been in Benjamin Franklin school and I've had a little boy call a staff member a nigger. Okay, yeah, I said that. A nigger. Where did he learn that from? And he was in Benjamin Franklin, first grade. Okay? And I thank you for hearing me, but we have to do better. We all have to do better. And to apologize for truth, that's horrific. You shouldn't have to apologize for truth.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing with us tonight. We've reached the point where we've exceeded our 30 minutes. And we would go on to the next order of business, unless there is a motion seconded and approved to extend the public speaking beyond the 30 minutes.
I would like to make a motion to continue public comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll continue. Sonia, can you tell me who's next on to speak with us, please?
Yes, someone named A. Hall.
Good evening, Mr. or Mrs. Hall. Your microphone is open. Could you identify yourself, please? Thank you.
Yes, my name is Ariana. I'm a resident, and actually in the next year, my nephew is going to be joining you guys in your district. So I just want to start by addressing the gentleman who said that he was offended by the page of the book that stated that the man wouldn't have been pulled over if he were white. I just have to say lots of school curriculums included in the past, and honestly still include To Kill a Mockingbird. And you know how uncomfortable that is for any brown or black child to sit in the classroom and say the N-word over and over and over. And this is something that has happened and still does in districts even around us. So, I mean, a lot of things are uncomfortable, but there are a lot of things that are a lot more uncomfortable than that page in that book. But, so I think it's completely asinine, honestly, that we're having this discussion right now. I'm not sure why this school would even have to issue an apology at all in any manner for this book. I mean, police should not be dictating what should and shouldn't be taught in schools. I mean, honestly, I think that's offensive to the teachers and educators who are literally building their lives around nurturing these kids. But anyways, I just have a couple of book titles. I Want to Be a Police Officer, A Day in the Life of a Police Officer, Keeping You Safe, All in a Day's Work, Daddy, I Worry About You, Big Mike's Police Car, Officer Dan Looks for Clues, There's a Hero in My Family. And those are all books that I'm sure nobody would have a problem with that's arguing today. And there are literally hundreds more that are just like it, all about police officers and the light that they like. Hundreds. And here are a couple more titles. Something Happened in Our Town, and Mama, Did You Hear the News? 2. That is 2 books. There are only 2 kids' books that I could even find that touched on police brutality from our Black community's point of view in an age-appropriate manner, anywhere at all. And police brutality is real. There are police out here who are literally unjustly murdering people, and it's all over the news. If you guys want to insinuate that your children are too dense or privileged to see that that is happening around them, go on, but mine is not. I have a 7-year-old. a black 7-year-old. Mine is not, and my nephew is not going to have the privilege of being dense either. And that's the reality we live in. And people are angry about one of 2 books that touch on this topic in a school where you have like at least 30% a marginalized population. You are robbing Black and brown kids of a gentle discussion about an actual hard truth that they actually need help navigating, whether you like it or not. So these people need to back off and just let it be. Let it be.
Okay. I'm sorry, your time has expired. Thank you very much for sharing with us tonight. Sonia is the next person on the list that would like to address the board.
Victoria Klopman Tunis.
Okay, Victoria, there you go. You now have the floor, and feel free to address the board. Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Victoria Klopman Tunis. I'm a resident of the West Side. I do not have any children, but I hope that if one day I do, that their voices are heard. Lori, you said it yourself. You said that there are good and bad people in this world. That's literally what this book is about. So why is it personal for them? Why do they have the right to be offended? The only way to encourage diversity is to acknowledge the inequality police use daily. There's no need to further marginalize people of color and not just acknowledge the glaring problem that exists. This is literally over a children's book. Are their egos really that fragile? We should want our children to grow up as allies to Black and brown people. They really need it. If children are young enough to experience acts of racism, every single one of them are ready for this conversation. This isn't a political conversation, and there's no need to apologize to police. This is about being a human being in America, including all races, not just white people, and the system that holds them up tirelessly. This will be a reality for Black children as they grow up, and it's not fair, and it's our job to make it better for their future. This is honestly just sad. And the fact that white people are this offended, and I have to encourage self-reflection. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria, for sharing with us this evening. And next speaker is Ingrid Seager. Sonia?
Yes.
Okay, Ingrid. Go ahead and unmute your mic, and you have the floor now. Thank you.
She is unable to speak, it looks like. Zoom is saying that she is on an older version of Zoom.
I don't know how to fix that, so why don't we go on to the next person?
I'm not sure how to fix that. I apologize, Ingrid. The next person on the list is Alexis Plus.
I'm sorry, before she starts, can we quickly share the phone number so Ingrid can call in? Thank you.
It's in the material we read. Are you talking about, which phone number are you talking about, Corinne? To call
Well,
Sonia?
typically, no.
Or to get into the Zoom?
To call into the Zoom. If whatever device she seems to be on, it's too old. So what I'm recommending is that we provide the phone number so she can call into the Zoom.
That's on the district website.
Thank you.
Okay, should I speak now?
Yeah, go ahead, Alex. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Go ahead. Thank you.
So first of all, I want to state, my name is Alexis Plus, and I first want to state that the format doesn't allow for a proper order of speakers this evening. Really, we should be putting Black and brown folks first and hearing their voices first. So I really regret being a white woman and being called on, but there's probably no way to address this at the moment. But it's really unfortunate because really it's not our voices that matter as much as Black and brown voices from our community. The next thing that I want to say is that I'm really shocked by the people who have found themselves to be experts about what's appropriate for children, since this book was developed by child and family psychologists. And I would imagine that they would have a lot more experience than most of the people who've been calling in about what would be appropriate for a child and how to address these issues. It's actually 3 psychologists who developed this book together. It was on the New York Times bestseller list as well. In my opinion, and in the work that I do on a daily basis and the experiences that I hear from Black and Brown community members, the fact that the school is not talking about this or would not talk about this would be more of a problem than if the school does talk about it. This is something that's happening in our communities, and for people to think just because someone hasn't been killed in our community yet, this isn't a topic that we should talk about. I think that there's a few statistics that the school board needs to hear. Broome County has the highest incarceration rate in the entire state. We also have twice the national disparity of incarcerating Black and brown folks over white folks. That's twice the national disparity of locking up Black and brown folks. If that doesn't boil down to racism in our policing, I'm not sure how we could explain that disparity difference. And recently, the city of Binghamton police and county police refused to participate in meaningful reform to meet the needs of our community members. Despite countless opportunities for community members to give input to local social justice groups, those opinions and those voices were ignored in local police reform. So what that tells us is that not only is our local policing system racist as it stands, but they also refuse to reform, and now they don't want the children to be educated about it. If you think that Black families aren't having this conversation with their children, you're wrong. Black families are, because it's it's necessary for their survival. The problem is that white families are not having these discussions with their family, and it's one of the reasons that I personally loved the book. This gave the school the opportunity to have this conversation with white and Black children, so that children who are not getting an education about racism, being white kids would be exposed to that conversation. As you heard from Malika earlier, there's, 7-year-old children using the N-word, white children using the N-word in school grounds. So obviously there are families in the districts who are not addressing racism in a meaningful way. Having this.
Alexis, I'm sorry, can you wrap up your thought? Your time has expired.
I sure can. The last thing I just wanted to really emphasize, even my opinion tonight should be thrown away. It's not white folks that you should be reaching out to hear from. It's the Black and brown folks in your community. Ask them what conversations they have to have with their kids, and then you'll find out why this book is so important. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Sonia, do we have Ingrid back?
I had her for a second and I lost her. I was trying to research another way to include her, and now I don't see her in the list. The next person in the lineup is Smiths. That's all it says.
Yes, welcome. And if you could unmute, thank you very much. And could you identify yourself, please?
Hi, my name's Laura, and I have quite a few children in the school district. And just to basically recap a few things that have honestly already been said. And maybe to add something that hasn't been said, our kids have been seeing footage of a 13-year-old child that was shot and by a police officer, and this is a conversation that has to be had with our children. And I don't think, that there is a certain a person that many of us as parents went out and voted for the school board because we did not want him on the school board with his racist views. He starts a Facebook page and he's spreading all this information that's false. You're seeing, oh, this is a racist. It's not racist. This book is about 2-3 different points of views, parents speaking to their children. And I personally think if our law officers are offended by the fact that we're teaching our children, that they need to be kind to each other and that these things shouldn't be happening, if they're offended by the story, maybe they need to rethink their jobs. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much for sharing with us tonight. And I assume we haven't been able to get Ingrid back. So Kamal Yard is next to speak. Kamal, if you could unmute your microphone.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Welcome.
Good evening. So I had so many thoughts, but I will try to be succinct. So I have gone back and forth with you guys in the past about your treatment of students of color and your addressing their issues and curriculum. And, it's a shame that every time Binghamton takes 2 steps forward, it takes 5 steps back, because you espoused restorative practice, you espoused we're trying to become more cultural competent. We're not even going to talk about the fact that we've been investigated multiple times. But what the problem is that we have people who felt they could call in here and challenge you all about what belongs in school when we started this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance and the national anthem. That's politics. That's in school. We have special education classes and extra services and counselors. That's equity. That's in school. So for people to call here and challenge you all for doing the right thing makes it exactly why you should not have issued the apology. Because you're doubling down that this is a culture we want to maintain. Yes, some people's toes were stepped on. True. But people's feelings were hurt at many other incidences that have happened both in the school, on school grounds, by school staff, by SROs, by a myriad of people. And no such thing was issued for the public and to parents. So what I'm saying to you all is this. This is a chance, right? For you to say, how can we be better moving forward? Because you dropped the ball already. All right. I had the privilege of going to MacArthur School and teaching kids about Kwanzaa before I left the community. It was one of the best moments I ever had in Binghamton because so many kids were so excited to have a different conversation about something they were never exposed to. This is another one of those opportunities, and I applaud the teachers who took that opportunity. And it should have been done on a larger scale because these are the conversations that have to happen. But when we then say, oops, for being progressive, all you're saying is that you don't really choose to aspire to your alleged words of restoration and competency and moving forward. Thank you for your time. Glad to see so many familiar faces.
Thank you, Kamal, for sharing that with us this evening.
Ryan,
Yes.
I think I see Ingrid on the list. I'm going to see if I can connect her this time. Looks like she's there.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Yes, we can hear you. Feel free to start. Your microphone is open. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak with you. I just wanted to add that I send my children to the City of Binghamton School District to be educated in things like social studies and science and mathematics. And I don't send my children to be indoctrinated with teachers' perceived social injustices. I believe what is happening here is a critical race theory. I believe, which is an educated word for neo-Marxism. And I believe that's what's entering this school district, especially when I hear words like equity and inclusion, which is the fundamental basis of critical race theory. I, as a parent, would like to see a parental advisory council where parents have the opportunity to approve all administration hires, approve written audio and video material used as part of the curriculum, and have full transparency of all the following school curriculums, maps, lessons plans, and materials. Furthermore, as many school officials want police body cams, as do a lot of the public, or they want the police body cameras, I would suggest that possibly that the school implements cameras in the classrooms with full audio, so that people can listen to the curriculum being taught their children, and that it is easily accessible by FOIL or parental request. That's really all I have to say. I found the book was hurtful as a member of the law enforcement community. My kids were hurt by it because they're proud of their mother and what she does. And I just thank you for your time. And my children are listening to this and have been listening to these comments coming in. So I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ingrid, for sharing that with us. Next speaker, Sam Whalen. Sam, can you have the floor? Unmute your mic. There you go. All set.
Hi, my name is Sam Whalen, and I am unfortunately a Binghamton resident. I have noticed a lot of bad takes so far, because anytime someone calls in and, you know, they're a 75-year-old person named Edith or Joe, they're gonna be a bad take machine. And I've heard some rhetoric that's been regurgitated concerning we should not be teaching politics to our children, and yet we have our children affected by politics. Everyone's affected by politics. I am, you are, and like Kamel said, the Pledge of Allegiance and the national anthem is indoctrinated into us from a young age. And I've had a lot of, another woman said something about why are more white people killed by police? There are 6 times as many white people in this country as black folks, and still there are only 4 times as many killed. That's an uneven ratio. Black people, when you look at the ratio, are killed at a higher rate. I guess that person wasn't paying attention in math class. And we're in a school board meeting and this person didn't pay attention in school. Tragic, right? So then someone said something, honestly, it's astounding because you're hiding the truth. If you're concerned with what your children are being taught, then you know it's true. Kids don't trust cops, rightfully so. I never had a good experience. I was getting kicked in the head 2 years ago outside of Merriam's, downtown Binghamton. Cops didn't show up until 15 minutes after it was over. You know who helped me? A bystander, a community member came and fought for me. Police didn't show up until 15 minutes later. Cops don't show up until after the crime happens. Rarely do they ever do anything. And finally, I'd like to finish off by saying some information came out about a member of the school board. I won't say their name, but I'm pretty sure people can figure that out, saying that he was a bit concerned with her running for school board and was using racist microaggressions about, I've actually spoken to some intelligent black people, which I shouldn't have to explain why that sounds racist. And then I thought, wait, there's more though. I heard this school board member using the N-word under his breath, referring to a black celebrity because they're a Trump supporter. I don't like Trump supporters, but even if you're a black Trump supporter, I'm not going to call you the N-word, right? I think that school board member should apologize for that, take accountability for that. Even though it was a few years ago, I'm still taking accountability for things that I said 8 to 10 years ago. I'm still doing it. I'm trying to better myself, fight my racism, because when I came and talked about the strip search that happened a few years ago, that school board member sent people to stalk my Facebook, sent a family member to call me and ask me to stop, but I will not stop. And yeah, I think that person, I don't think that person deserves to be school board president. I think people should.
I
have to say thank you.
Sam, your time has expired. And thank you for sharing that with me. There are a number of items that I believe are misinformation that you have just spoken. So we'll leave it at that, and we'll go to the next caller, please.
Blake McCabe.
Welcome, Blake.
Hi, thank you. So I am a local, multi-generational. My father went all the way through Binghamton School District, and I'm a doctoral candidate in anthropology focusing on politics in America. I also am a substitute teacher in Binghamton, and I also teach online homeschooling on issues of race, racism, and comparative religion around the world. I want to just say a few quick things. One of the things that's been brought up is how many people were killed by police, black versus white. And I just want to show you, when we look at percentages, which is based on population, black people are twice as high likely to be killed than white Americans, and it's predominantly African Americans. My sources come from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States, the Washington Post, as well as a statistics website, where I can tell you in 2021, that's brand new. Let's look at in 2020, 457 white people were killed, and yes, 241 black people were killed. However, when we look at the percentage of the population, as the previous person said, we'll see that 241 black people out of the number of black people in America versus the number of white people is over twice as high. So while the number itself may look smaller, black people are much more likely to be killed by police in the United States. In addition, politics is absolutely part of our schooling. I subbed there for a class, music, and the second grade class was learning about the Underground Railroad, music from it, completely normal thing to teach, right? And this is political. Everything in history is political. When you say the Pledge of Allegiance, which says under God, which in itself is a problem because of separation of church and state, and the fact that it did not originally have under God in it, people are already being forced to do things that are political. So either we completely remove social studies, which I would never suggest as a social scientist myself, or we understand that life is political. We must learn about politics to understand our history to prevent repeating in the future, and that if you have white privilege and your family is lucky enough that you don't have to worry about these issues, you are obligated to learn about it. And teachers are in loco parentis. We learn that in school. That's Latin. For those who don't know, it means in lieu of parents. That when we have the kids during school, we are meant to act on behalf of the parents for their best interests. And that is why we have a school board, assuming they do their jobs, and why teachers are certified to do their jobs. So that's why you social studies teachers teach social studies. Elementary certified teachers teach elementary school. Politics is part of life. Politics is part of schooling and history. That includes teaching about issues of institutionalized racism and police violence. Of course, I'm not saying all police are bad. I have family who are working in the criminal justice system, and they are great people, and I love them. That doesn't mean the criminal justice system is perfect, and that doesn't mean we can't talk about issues of police violence and teach people how to do better. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for offering your thoughts tonight. Next, Sonia.
Kwamia Sanford.
Good evening, Kwamia. Your microphone is unmuted and you have the floor.
Hi, good evening. My son attends MacArthur. I am a local nurse. And there were a lot of things that I heard that I want to respond to, but of course, I'm sure you guys don't have the time. But just to say that I, as a Black American woman, I am definitely in agreement with the book being presented to children. My husband actually does handle all the homeschooling with our son. And when he heard it, he was very appreciative. He even reached out to the teacher to say, I appreciate that you guys tackled this topic. And the fact is that as a member of a marginalized group, I am someone who is very often, having to deal with stereotypes. So the fact that anyone thinks that we need to hear, oh, not all cops are bad, is kind of condescending, because obviously we know that you cannot judge a whole group of people based on the actions of the few, though despite that, plenty of people have done that within the Black community. So that being said, as a nurse, I know that there are good nurses and there are bad nurses. I'm credentialed as a nurse. I am licensed as a nurse. If I do something wrong, I am punished for it. I could potentially lose my license. I could potentially lose my job. We've seen time and time and again where that is not the case with officers. They are not credentialed. They are not required to be retrained, and they continue to make the same mistakes over and over again. I don't think that teaching our children that people do things and take advantage of their privilege, take advantage of their power in society is a bad thing. I think that creates advocates. I think that creates allies. I think that creates people who will grow up and want to become a police officer, but not be that kind of police officer. And I think that it can only be helpful to teach kids about what's going on in the world, whether it is your reality or not, it is someone's reality. And expecting to suppress that because it doesn't affect you and because it doesn't affect your loved one is part of the idea of privilege. And recognizing that you have it is very important. And, recognizing how others of us do not, and why conversations like this are very, very important for young Black girls and young Black boys who are going to grow up and be affected by the same system. And that's mostly all I have to say. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much for sharing that with us. Next speaker up is Cecil Hopkins. And Cecil, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. You can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. So yeah, there's a lot of things to respond to that I've heard. One of the things was the video and audio in the classroom, which I think is insane and ridiculous on a whole other level, but that's not my main point right now. I think the most important thing is to address that the people against this book seem to not understand what the book is. It is supposed to create discussion, give you points of view about what's happening in the world, especially when it comes to you have 28% of your kids are Black in the district, 58% are POCs or people of color, and MacArthur itself, it's 48%. So there's a big part of your students that are affected or will be affected by this in some way or another, and it is important for everybody to know what are things that are happening. And these things happen all over the world. We talk about disasters, all kinds of stuff about the world, in the world with our kids. Why aren't we talking about something that is epidemic and is a crisis in our own country? And I feel like what I've also heard is saying that these kids don't understand this. They're too young to understand it. You'd be surprised at how much 4 to 8-year-olds can understand about what's going on in the world, and how much that they pick up from their parents that are being said that becomes indoctrinated and stuck in their own minds, and it doesn't go away. These are important conversations that need to be had. These are things that I've seen as a substitute teacher, Maine Endwell, Union Endicott, Harpersville, Sydney. I've been all around these things. It is important for us to talk about it in every way possible. This book was very good to do that with. I feel like the apology that was issued to the BPD was ridiculous and should be rescinded, because one big thing is to ever fix a problem, you first have to realize that there is one. And since BPD doesn't want to do that, that's the onus is on them and not on us or on the teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecil, for offering your comments to us tonight and joining us. Next speaker is Natalie DeBoer. Did I pronounce that right? And you can unmute your mic.
You did. Hello.
Okay. Hi.
Hi. Thank you for letting me speak to you tonight. I am a graduate of the Binghamton School District. I went to Horace Mann West Middle. I graduated from Binghamton High School. I'm currently finishing up my last year of college, and I have experienced great feelings of pride about where I graduated from, and also great feelings of shame, because I do think that our district has a real problem that it needs to combat. I am white, and so I cannot speak for lived experience. So I'd like to just come here and just do a little bit of fact checking on some things that are said, because I believe that I believe that facts matter. I believe some things are black and white. I believe some things are not objective, and there is objective truth. So just to real quickly touch on, there was a mention about in the book, there was apparently a line about someone wouldn't have been stopped in a car if they were white. Statistically, that is true. There was a study conducted by Stanford, the Stanford Open Policing project in 2020, and found that looking at over 20 million traffic stop records across the country, that black individuals were 20% more likely to be stopped than their white counterparts, and they were searched 1.5 to 2 times as often as white drivers once they were stopped. So that was an incorrect fact that was mentioned. I would also like to address the fact that the video about the teacher in the classroom who said that they were ashamed of where they came from, this was definitely misconstrued. They were not saying they were ashamed of where they came from. They said that they were ashamed that the community they grew up in did not provide them with a rich background of diversity, so that they were able to be exposed to diversity at a young age, and thus were able to expand their worldview from a young age. So I wanted to clarify that. There was someone early on said that said the sentence, equity should not be part of our education system. If this was said once, I would think it was a misspoken, but it was said multiple times, so I'd like to qualify. The definition of equity is the quality of being fair and impartial. This meeting was started with a slide with words like fair, impartial, tolerance. So if we're claiming that's not part of our school system or education, it seems very strange. Secondly, if you're saying that social justice is something that's political, in other words, ensuring that young people are not killed in the streets is political, that says more about your politics. And finally, I just want to say that one should really look into the book to clearly see that, if you don't understand, there's a line in it that says there are many cops that are black and white who make good choices, but we can't always count on them to do what is right. That is a direct quote from the book. So clearly this is not an attack on the cops. And I would really like the apology to be rescinded so I can be proud of my alma mater again.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us tonight. I know that we're significantly over where we planned on being, and there's still a number of people to speak. And I wanted to ask the board if you wanted to continue on with this section of public comment, or whether we should stop here. We have another section of public comment later on, so that we could get to the board business. And I just want to take a poll at this point and see what people want to do. Liz?
I honestly think we need to stop so that we can talk, for instance, about the reopening to the 4-day week coming up next week, and then pick it up again at the end. I think that would be fine.
Dave?
Yeah, I believe we should end the comment right now at this point and go on. Otherwise, we won't get our business completed.
Tim?
I think we should proceed with the business. However, I certainly would like to hear everybody's voices if possible. So,
okay, thank you. Steve?
Yeah, I'm in the same place with everyone else. I'd like to put a hold on this for now, get to the other items, and come back to it once those are done.
Corinne, she's on here somewhere. Corinne?
I'm right here.
Oh, there you go. Your picture wasn't popping up for me. What's your preference?
Well, I mean, the majority of the board is ready to move on, and I guess I'm okay with that. But one thing that I will say is, and this is something that we have talked about many times in the past, that I think so many people show up to board meetings to speak because we are not having as many opportunities to have them share their opinions and get dialogue from them. Although this is like a virtual space right now, I think that we really, like that needs to be part of our next steps. We need to have a meeting specifically about this because people are very interested in talking about this. But I think that we need to revisit that kind of idea. And I know we were doing it prior to COVID and shutting down and all of that, but we need to make a space for them to communicate with us because we need.
So I don't disagree with that. It's just been very difficult with the buildings not open and visitors not being able to go into the buildings. But yes. So with that, we will stop this portion of the meeting. And I'm going to ask, because I believe this was the point where we were going to have Corinne lead the board in a discussion in regards to this matter. And so I think it would be proper to try to limit our discussions also so that we can move forward and finish our business. And I think we'll end up, there'll be further discussions on this in the future. I'm positive of it. So is that something you can moderate, Corinne?
Sure. So
To you.
Okay. So
All right, folks. So what you have just heard has been the Binghamton Board of Education. They were speaking today about a book by the name of Something Happened in Our Town. And what we were doing is, of course, we were live streaming that for you so that you could hear exactly what the conversation was. What is it the public is saying and exactly what they were thinking. And this is something that was made aware. A lot of people heard about it. As you can see, it was on Twitter earlier today with members of the Binghamton University College advising people, who is obviously a supporter of Black Lives Matter and that ideology, and encouraging a specific set of people to get involved to support what happened. So let me try and be a little clear. What happened is that we received, the public was able to see that there was a book reading for 8